So welcome to the Super Treadmill Mechanics overview. So today, the objectives are to discuss sprint mechanics as it pertains to our Athletic Republic treadmill. Actual mechanics is not too far off from real running mechanics. There's only slight differences, but they're pretty much the same. We're going to identify faulty movement patterns. We'll also explain possible causes of faulty movement patterns, and finally, we'll come up with some strategies on how to fix these faulty movement patterns. But before that, a little history about where the Athletic Republic program started. It actually started in 1985. An exercise physiologist by the name of John Frappier did an internship in Russia. And in 1985, what they were doing in Russia to help their athletes become faster is hook up a tow rope onto a car, and they attach it to the athlete. They set the car at a certain speed, let's say 8 miles per hour, and you had to run the speed of the car. The overall effect worked, but he thought to himself, how can I bring this to the United States without getting in trouble, towing people behind me? That's where he came up with utilizing the treadmill, and then the incline. John Frappier Acceleration Sports Training became the FAST program, and there actually was an acceleration program here in St. Louis in the late 90s, early 2000s. And in fact, a great story is we would get a trickle of acceleration athletes who came in here and they didn't like the training for one reason or another. And what I learned is they didn't learn good sprint mechanics when they were there. I'd kind of work with them and be like, will they teach you how to run? No, they just cranked us up on the treadmill and were hoping to make us puke. And they made a big deal out of it, and they had a trash can and nicely labeled to puke there and all that good stuff. And I was like, really? So I think a combination of things. The trainers weren't educated enough in the program. I knew that they didn't pay them much, so that kind of coincides with you don't get good help, then you get what you pay for. That program closed down, and for one reason or another, we decided to look into it a little bit more. And in 2005, myself and Dale went to Fargo, North Dakota, where it was headquartered and trained under John Frappier himself. And then we started the program not too far after that. So with that said, Athletic Republic bought acceleration somewhere around between 2007 and 2008, somewhere around there. We converted to that name and also moved locations to here, up in Frontenac. We used to be in Chesterfield. So let's talk about today and the sprint mechanics and a little bit about what we do here. When do we evaluate sprint mechanics? Well, I'm going to show you a handout later on, and all these images are from a thing that I do when Charlie or myself talks to a parent and we talk about their athlete. We may recommend a digital video analysis, a DVA. That's where we do a pretty detailed analysis on their sprint mechanics and figure out from there where they should go, if they can go into small group training or private training. If they don't do a DVA, then some of you guys here have already had trial sessions. I think Alex has had some trial sessions before, maybe even Lindsay. You've had trial sessions, first-time people, so you're going to evaluate the run mechanics there. And obviously during small group sessions and private sessions. What I'm trying to say is you should be evaluating your mechanics the entire time, even veterans. Remember that our speed program provides repetition of movement. So we need to treat running in our scenario like a skill. All of us are former athletes. How do we get better? We practice, we do things repetitively so we can kind of create that muscle memory, so to speak, so you don't have to think about it when you're actually performing the task at hand. Same thing for us. When they come in here, they want to improve the run mechanics, so we treat running as the skill, even though it's something we don't think about too much. And they say practice makes perfect. We'll take it a step further. Perfect practice makes perfect. We got to make sure that they're doing it properly when they're in here. So today, I want to emphasize a technique that I kind of learned through the acceleration program in Athletic Republic. It's the toe to head strategy. We're going to start from the ground and work your way up. Why do we start that way? Well, because we start with our feet. So obviously that's a good place to start and looking at their mechanics. Remember throughout all this, when you're working with an athlete, you've got 40 minutes to work with them on their mechanics. You don't have to hammer them with this information the first 5 minutes. You may not even get to all the way up to the head because they got so much stuff going on from the hips down or whatever. So keep that in mind. Number 2, don't overwhelm yourself, don't overwhelm the athlete, and all should be good. Another thing to keep in mind, all the examples that I'm giving up here, the treadmill is set at 12.5 to 15 degrees. That is when sprint mechanics actually occurs, at least on the treadmill. According to EMG studies, when you set the incline at that level, you're recruiting the same muscles as an elite sprinter. Also, all the forces that you're providing are propulsion forces at that angle, so it's as close as to sprinting as can be, at least on the treadmill. Speeds are going to be anywhere between 8 or 9 miles per hour up to 12 or 13. A lot of athletes, I don't even tell them they're going to be faster than the speed on here, but because it's maybe their first time on a treadmill, that we're not going to get them up to their max speed. And let us start with the toe to head strategy. Does everyone know, without looking at your sheet or the board there, what your foot position should be during sprint mechanics? Eric? Foot position? I'll give you A or C. A or B. On the balls of your feet or on your heels?
It's easy, heels.
I don't know if you can see this screen here. This is a soccer athlete. He's actually, Alex, this is your client. And as you can see, during our DVA, total heel mechanics. In addition to running when you run on your heels, you're also providing a braking effect. So you're actually doing yourself a disservice by doing a heel strike. Also, you'll notice that the foot is ahead of them. Ideally, you want to be on the ball of your foot and almost directly underneath the body, maybe no more than 12 inches in front of the center of gravity here. So he's not running efficiently, obviously, right?
Is that Anthony?
That is Anthony. So balls of your feet, simple, right? You look in a mirror in front of you, use the mirror as a tool, and you look at their sprint mechanics. So that was foot position. Let's look at, from this angle, ideally your feet should be hip width apart. Again, use the mirror as a guide. Like when you're starting a new person, start down low. Don't overwhelm yourself with what's going on with the entire body. Start there first. This athlete's obviously not running correctly or efficiently. In fact, on this image here, he's crossing over. Oh no, that's his left foot. He's crossing over this line. He's crossing over both sides. Reverting back to the toe mechanics, the simple fix for that is to tell them, first of all, run on the balls of your feet. Also remind them the balls of your feet. You may have to show them. Remember, we're dealing with kids. This is the ball of your feet. I've had athletes think this was the ball of their feet, so they continue to do that even more. I'm like, oh, no. That's number one. Just tell them, coach them to not do that. Number two, if they can't do it, then there's an obvious weakness in their ankle complex. Their gastrocs are weak, soleus are weak. There's some structures that are weak, so we may have to direct them a different way and get everything strong. In this image here, there's a lot of things that could be going on up in the hip. A weak hip musculature, some tightness, some imbalances. But first and foremost, tell them to run their feet hip width apart. See if they can do it. They just don't know maybe. Oops. Let's work our way up the chain. Let's look at what their knee drive is. I have hip flexion on here, but let's refer to as knee drive. The ideal angle during sprint mechanics should be 70 to 90 degrees. Here are a couple of examples of some athletes that don't have very good knee drive. I don't remember if it was because of a lack of strength or because they just didn't know how to do it. But again, I just have them run. I don't over-cue them, I just have them run. We use the Dartfish digital video analysis program, so I'm able to measure the angles on these athletes, so I can show them later, and especially their parents, what's going on with their sprint mechanics. Some more examples here, a little bit better. We got 63.8 on this kid, 63% or degrees on that one, so it's a little bit closer. And here's a kid who got pretty good, decent knee drive, 70 degrees there. Let's keep working our way up the chain. Now we look at the torso. Oops. I measure the torso angle, which is what your body's doing at max hip flexion. So whatever the athlete's max hip flexion is, that's where I'm going to measure what their torso is doing. Generally speaking, whatever their torso is will give me an indicator of what their pelvis or hip position is. The ideal angle for this is 4 to 6 degrees. First example is showing about 15 degrees. Second example is showing about 14 degrees. Once again, the coaching cue is to tell them to be a little bit more upright. The hold runs are an excellent tool to help set the position of the hips for the athlete. That's probably the most underutilized thing that we can do during the run mechanics. You can use it for someone to help with their foot strike, because when they're holding on, they're unloading their own body weight. We can teach them a little bit better hip drive because, again, they're assisted. And finally, we can help set their hips and therefore their torso. So remember, what I see a lot during the hold runs is, yes, they're holding on, yes, they're getting a knee drive, but they still may be a little bit anteriorly tilted. Most athletes tend to be tilted this way. So you tell them to push your hips up forward and get a little bit more upright. Kate there is showing 11.7. Other kid, I measured out what his pelvic position is. Far from neutral. And he's probably leaning forward about 15 degrees as well. So as I'm showing you this, picture those of you who are used to coaching on a treadmill. It's pretty much everyone except for Truth. You're standing beside them and monitoring what they're doing in the mirror. Feel free to do checks on what their posture is from a profile point of view too. Working our way up, arm swing. In this case, we're looking at what their thoracic rotation is or shouldn't be. The arms should not cross the midline of the body. Midline of the body, looking at them in the mirror, they should not cross the midline. Common error that athletes make, especially when they're starting with us, cross the midline, they can run like this. Some coaches cue kind of a triangle, so here's your triangle. Crossing midline, remember, running is a straightforward sport. So if you're twisting your trunk, you're wasting energy, making the movement inefficient. You can see here, he's crossing over. I highlighted here in the program, crossing over a little bit. And he's definitely crossing over. These are images, again, that I pulled off of DVA reports that I give to the parents, and they can see it as well. If that was arm swing, we're going to look at arm angle. The front arm, you remember the cue we give athletes, the hips to lips. Front arm should be 90 degrees. Here are examples of faulty movement. We've got 35 degrees, got about 40 degrees there. So it's a little bit tight. The rear arm angle should be 90 to 110 degrees. So hopefully, I think you can see from there, they're just a little bit wide there. Yeah, I'll talk through it. Let's put our strategies to use here. Let's watch him running. And let me know, is he doing the proper foot strike pattern? Whoops, let's repeat him. What do you think? Not bad for a first time. I think his natural pattern is yes, he is running in the balls of his feet. Let's check out this kid. Way out ahead of him, boom, foot strike, braking forces, inefficient running. Let's use this same image and let's see, is he exhibiting, let's move our way up the chain. How's his knee drive? He's a high school soccer player, I think. I think decent knee drive. Might be a little bit below 70 degrees, might be right at 70, so decent knee drive there. Where are his feet supposed to be? Yeah, hip width apart. So he is tightrope running, we like to call it. It's a short vid. Oops. The angle I have there is where he should be. I have 6 degrees measured out there. He's a little bit forward of that. And there you have it. I'll run through this again one more time. We're looking at his foot mechanics, pretty good. His knee drive could be better. He's got the heel to toe going here. Now his foot's way out in front of him. His torso angle's off. His hip drive could be better. Arm swing is not so clean. Head posture obviously should be upright. One more time with the rear angle. Should be hip width apart. You can look at the mirror for that. And torso angle, we'll look at the torso angle, but I want you to look at the arm swing and arm angle too on this kid. Doesn't appear to be too bad from this angle, but I think he's still crossing over, especially towards the end. Okay. What's the time, Charlie? I mean, what are we? I knew it. Okay. I'm going to hand out another thing that's going to help you guys also help you figure out what's proper mechanics and whatnot. I'm going to give you a copy of what our DVA looks like. There's some extra items on there that don't pertain to the treadmill, but obviously pertains to an athlete's performance. This is what the parents receive. So I try to make it to where they understand it and understand what's going on with their kid or athlete. Use this DVA as a guide or a learning tool as well. And it should show everything, starting at the feet, working my way up to the knees and hips, to the torso, and the arms, of course. No questions? Does that mean me and Heidi have the green light to really critique your instructing on people on the treadmill now?
Does each athlete get this video analysis? Or is that
No.
something extra?
It costs $100 basically if they want that. But most of the time we'll go trial session. But what happens if that athlete really struggles in trial session, a lot of times then I'll have them do this digital video analysis. We do the DDA a lot though for our injured athletes as well. They're coming from a specific injury, or if the parent ahead of time says, yeah, my kid, I don't know what they're doing, if they're running. So Randy and I can see it pretty quick. And it's something that I like the trial session, but this is, I want to do more of this, just video in general, so we have a lot of kind of before and afters for marketing, but not every family wants to do it. A lot of families don't want to pay $100 for the eval, but that's why we do the free trial. But yeah, we'll ask them if they want to do this first, and then go to the trial.
Have you tried it at All-Star at all?
We haven't done it at All-Star yet. We just have to get the camera and stuff, but we'll probably within a couple months we'll be doing it over there too.
Yeah, that's cool stuff.
Moving forward with your trials, when you get a new trial session, or if Charlie asks you because a parent was asking, you can use these different positions, these 6 or 7 different coaching cues to help describe what the athlete's doing. That's the easy way to summarize. Okay, this athlete, Johnny's still running flat-footed. He's got a weak knee drive. Arm swing's decent, but he is, still lacks power or whatever, or core strength. You can use these different coaching cues to help describe and update Charlie if the parent needs it. And just remember too, there's a whole series of different phases of the gait cycle, which is a whole other discussion, but for our purposes, this is what we're looking at, what you can summarize what the running mechanics are. The beauty of this treadmill too is it's doing a lot of things for the athlete that they don't know it's doing. We're setting positions, we are providing the repetitive movement and good movement pattern, we are strengthening their hips and core, because if they're in the right position, they have to activate these muscles. And with the younger athletes, it's a pretty good, it's a great way to strengthen these muscles without having to really get down there and isolate things. But sometimes their movement mechanics are off and we have to isolate certain regions so that they move better. The other thing, I don't remember if I said at the very beginning, but the Russians believe that you need to train fast to be fast. And that's what this program does. You got to train quickly. We teach that in the agility session as well.
But early on too, it's a big selling point of our program is to hit the mechanics. So that's why early on you really want to hit them over the head with it. That's also when the parents are watching a lot more. A lot of times the parents stay for the first couple weeks and they kind of trickle out. So one of the biggest things that and that's usually obviously the speed and agility and strength is important, but that's one of the biggest things I hear from parents is my kid can't run right. And so that's what they want to see early on. So even in the trial is not an easy thing to do because the athlete's still getting used to the treadmill and certain things like that. But just give them little simple cues the first session, and then when they come back, that's when we really need and you can see it in their protocol if they're pretty new. And you'll notice when you get on the treadmill. But that's one of the biggest things is early on in that first month, really we need to hit the mechanics.
Is that Dartfish?
Yeah.
Is there anything stopping you from, like I have coach's eye, from just taking a snap for yourself and
In
drawing
it-
angles without?
In the grand scheme of things, no.
No.
There's more features that we're not utilizing in Dartfish, but Coach's Eye has plenty of. That's what Heidi uses mostly
I
for
got it on my phone.
for convenience. Coach's Eye is it's an app you guys can use if you want to analyze mechanics of your clients as well on the treadmill.
Although it's not safe to video while they're running on there.
But if somebody else,
could
like
do it.
another coach could take a quick snap or something.
Is it free?
Coach's eye? It might be like a couple bucks.
It's free.
It's free.
Foot strike, bam, everyone's pretty good. Let's look at knee drive. Oh, perfect. Foot strike directly underneath, knee drive, about,
Shoulders down.
okay. Let's look at the hips. That's pretty neutral. Now let's look at the arm swing. I don't think they're crossing over midline.
It's not maintaining that like 90 degrees or anything though.
Yeah, close to 90 on the upswing. Not overly concerned about that. And of course the head is neutral. So there's everything put together. When I watched the Olympics several years ago, they showed a top view and you could see what their foot placement was. And I was like, wow, these guys are all doing it. It was pretty cool to see them. So there it is all together. That's it.
Oh,